The National Assembly has approved the deployment of a contingent of Kenya Defence Forces to the East African Community Regional Force to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, the deployment will cost the Kenyan taxpayer 4.45 billion shillings in the first 6 months, with the figure projected to rise to 7.2 billion shillings if the Kenyan troops stay on in the DRC for 1 year. President William Ruto handed the Kenyan flag to the KDF soldiers destined to the DRC, even as the House committee cautioned against the risk of being caught up in proxy wars that could jeopardize their safety and effectiveness. Let's get more from our very own Francis Gashuri.
A week after President William Ruto, who is the Commander-in-Chief of the Defence Forces, handed the national flag to a team of Kenyan soldiers destined to the Democratic Republic of Congo to join their counterparts from the East African region, the National Assembly, in line with the 2010 Constitution, approved the deployment. The Defence and Foreign Relations Committee, in a report tabled in the House by Chairman Nelson Koech, outlined to members the strategic reasons behind Kenya's decision to send its soldiers to DRC to combat militants who have wreaked havoc in eastern Congo. But the deployment will come at a cost to the Kenyan taxpayer. The initial deployment budget, that was set at 3.8 billion shillings, has shot to 4.45 billion shillings, with a variation of 601 million shillings, a discrepancy, the committee was told by Defense Cabinet Secretary Aden Duale, emanated from changes effected on the budget after a reconnaissance visit to the area in question and change in strategy. The 4.45 billion shillings budget covers the initial period of 6 months, with the cost of keeping Kenyan soldiers in DRC projected to rise to 7.2 billion shillings if they stay on for 1 year, and for every year they remain in eastern Congo, it will cost between 5.5 billion shillings and 6 billion shillings. The Ministry of Defence has been allocated 131 billion shillings in the 2022-2023 financial year. Recurrent expenditure budgeted at 128.2 billion shillings and development expenses at 3.47 billion shillings. In the report tabled by the Defence Committee and adopted by the House, specific expenses in the 4.45 billion shillings KDF deployment budget include equipment at 1.4 billion shillings, operations and maintenance at 1.09 billion shillings, with personal emoluments costing 1.04 billion shillings. Ammunition covers a huge chunk of the allocation at 1.02 billion shillings, technical stores at 543 million shillings, and utility helicopter costs at 479.4 million shillings. Major equipment, deployment of the MD530F maintenance expenses at 268 million shillings, and food rations for the soldiers at 195 million shillings. Medical expenses, Kenya Air Force C208 maintenance and deployment, domestic, household, cleaning, catering and tentage, as well as kitting of soldiers, are among the major expenses listed in the deployment budget. The Democratic Republic of Congo was admitted to the East African Community in April this year, and weeks later, the regional heads of state and government approved the deployment of forces to tame the militant groups in eastern Congo. With Kenyan soldiers being deployed alongside forces from Rwanda and Uganda, the Defense Committee cautioned against a multiplicity of interests and proxy wars that could jeopardize the safety and effectiveness of KDF forces. Francis Gashuri, Citizen TV.